And welcome everybody to another Bangers and Classics podcast. That's with me, James Ruppert, and him, David Malloy. And David, where have we been for the last week?
Well, we've been making our way back from sunny Transylvania. I spent most of it pushing an XJS because you were too lazy to get out the car. You said, "Oh, it has to be steered by an expert." So
Absolutely.
that was it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then there was that chap that diagnosed the fault by taking the engine to bits, only to tell us we'd run out of fuel. That was great fun too. But one thing I have seen since I came
Mm.
back, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's Transylvanian Crimewatch,
Goodness me.
and I could make out something about a dishwasher on it, and there was a mugshot of you.
Really?
And blimey, you don't have to look like Martin Freeman in it.
I don't think so, David.
Well, I don't know.
I'm rather handsome, I thought, but there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
what are you saying, Mr. Freeman? Are you say, "Oh, I'm not even going to go there"? No, we can't afford to fight a libel case. Apologies, Martin, if you're listening, which you won't be. But
Well, I didn't mean that, obviously. Yeah.
oh, he's very handsome, but you're just rather handsome.
Yeah, well, there you go.
We can get it that way, of course. Yeah,
That's right.
That's what we'll do then. Yes. Obviously, since coming back, I've been watching convoys of police vans head up and down the road towards Glasgow, which is terrifically exciting stuff. Police from all over the UK. So if you want to commit, no, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to go there.
Oh, so they're not just paying attention to you, David, and your nefarious activities. It's to do with other things.
No, well, they may be paying attention to me, James. That is the thing. I suspect they are.
Yeah.
I'm quite concerned about that. Really, I really am quite concerned. What have you been doing, James, since you made it back to these shores?
Well, strangely enough, we were talking about Corrados the other week, and I saw one coming towards me, and it was tremendously exciting. And the driver of the Corrado was also tremendously excited. It was a red one, and I think it was a VR6 because I was looking, and he put his thumb up. And I belatedly put my thumb up as well. I was in the Baby Shark, so it was a meeting of German car minds, really, as we drove along. So that was actually quite a thrill because I honestly cannot remember the last time that I saw one, but it was good to see one out and about. I also sent you a picture, David, of the MGB GT in sort of white cream colour, which was mentioned a long time ago. And I suspected you just thought I'd made it up, but I took a picture of it for you and sent it. Emma Peel was not in the picture, but you could see it was. I mean, it is in remarkable condition. It must have been completely nut and bolt restored in the last year or two because it really does look brand new. But it's a cheering sight to see.
Well, I saw an MGB this week as well.
Did you?
I did. I was heading up to Glasgow via the old road, as we call it, just to go to a supermarket, and I saw a tartan red MGB Roadster with chrome bumpers coming the other way. I suppose the weather wasn't too bad. It wasn't very cold. The roof was down. The road was damp, still being used, and it looked in very good condition indeed. And again, as you say, that's very cheering. It's a nice sight to see. I should also add it had a personalised MGB number plate. So this chap who owns it obviously is a real enthusiast.
Goodness me. Did it say MGB on it?
It did.
Did it really?
Yeah, it said MGB. Now, I think I remember the number, but I better not read it out. Anyway, yeah, it's the only classic car I've seen this week, with the exception of going to another supermarket. It's a Marks and Spencer's food place, giving them an unpaid for plug. It's near a fast food place, or a fast food place is near it, and it's a copper VW Beetle was there again. And the last time I saw it, it was in company of the one with all the filler on it, this fellow M registration Beetle, but it was there, and it looked in quite good condition. It certainly gets used, and it's obviously something that we do appreciate.
Absolutely. I don't know if you noticed, David, that there's a new Range Rover out, and it sort of looks like a fridge, really.
Not a dishwasher.
Yeah, or was it? Yeah, it may be a dishwasher. That's absolutely true. But at the same time, there is a company which has been around for a long time who are restoring the sort of the Mark One Series 1, and prices start at 125,000, and you sort of think to yourself, well, actually, I'd rather have one of those because everything is sorted on it, and it looks quite nice, and I'm sure that's not far away from whatever the price of a specificationed up new Range Rover fridge or dishwasher, as you say,
Yeah.
would be. But that's my comment on the crazy world of new cars at the moment.
Yeah, I've not seen that one. There were, I don't know, 600 or so versions of the Range Rover kicking around just now, so I kind of lost track some time ago.
It's extremely baffling, isn't it? But again, it's probably explains why we don't run a car company. Although obviously soon we will be launching the Bangers and Classics.
Oh, yes.
Roadster will be coming out, but I fail to see what the difference is between the vehicles that the Land Rover sell. But that's I don't have to worry about it on a daily basis. So yeah. But you are right; it is very confusing and not very interesting as well.
No, the early Range Rover, the original Range
Yeah.
Rover, was a nice car.
Mm.
It looked the part. Unusually for BL, they got the styling right at the time.
Yes, they did very much so.
Which was very unusual for them because they had a few clunkers around about that time, but the Range Rover certainly stood the test of time, the original one. And if you get a nice original one, well, the only problem with having one of those, James, is you can't really use it for its intended purpose. I mean, it really was a mud plugger that you could take on the road and truck to the school when I do your shopping in.
Yeah.
But they're now so valuable for a good one that you wouldn't really want to do that, would you?
No. I'm sure you're right, David. There was one around a couple of years ago, and it was a left-hand drive, and it was a TV program. I was when they were doing an auction and to actually sell off cars that they'd prepared, but it still went for about £8,000-9,000, and it wasn't that tidy. It was left-hand drive. It was diesel, and I don't think it was a three-door. I think it was a four-door still. So again, that seemed like an awful lot of money to pay for something which you'd still have to sort out.
This is the thing, and they can be very expensive to sort out. Let's be honest. That is the problem. If you do find a very good one and you can buy it for a reasonable price, then obviously, it's a bit of a no-brainer. If that's what you want, if you get the chance, take it because they're only going to go up in value.
Yeah.
As with everything else, obviously, as electric cars become, or battery cars, or electricity cars, as you call them, become more and more the norm as we get closer to 2030, then you're going to find the price of things like Range Rovers, and in fact, any vehicle that tows is going to go up. And just on that note, I was going to go into a serious mode just for a second, and James go, "Oh no, you don't go serious! No, no! Oh God, no! It's something my wife was telling me the other day. It's something I've advocated right from the start of the whole electricity car thing. They need to make noise. The British Horse Society has, I believe, now come out and said that electric cars need to make noise because they can creep up on horses and spook horses on the roads. And that's absolutely correct.
It is, but strangely enough, a Tesla went past where I live, and the tyre noise was actually quite incredible. It didn't sound very quiet at all. I don't know, there's something wrong with the tyres, but I do completely agree with you. It does seem daft. But,
I mean, there should be a noise. It's for partially sighted people. My mother's blind, so I've got a little bit of an insight into this. For animals too, not just for horses, for wild animals, it's important that cars make a noise to signal their approach. And it's something that should have been dealt with right at the start, and it's a disgrace that it wasn't. And that's all I'm going to be serious about this week.
Well, maybe, David, what they could do is they could play our podcast. So instead of vehicle noise, you get my droney voice and your wonderful timbre, and I think that would clear the road ahead.
Oh no, I've got a better idea. You saw Greta Thunberg recently singing, I think it was a Rick Astley song. Well, perhaps every electric car come with its own personal Greta Thunberg on the roof with a microphone singing away. It's perfect.
Well, it could be, couldn't it? But I'd like to think that we could earn some money from this, David.
We can copyright that idea. We can patent that idea.
Oh, okay.
That's it. We'll add that to the list of bangers and classics patents.
Yeah. Well, you're in charge of that. You're in charge of the legal side, David.
Absolutely, along with the chocolate teapot as well. That's one of our other great inventions. Well, on that note, James, I think we'll take a quick break. This is the Bangers and Classics podcast, presented by James Ruppert and David Malloy, and as seen on Crimewatch Transylvania. So we're back after that break, and we're going to jump back to Transylvania for a little while. Actually, we're not. We're going to jump back, swinging London of the early 1970s, to discuss some cars seen in a film. Now, we mentioned the film before, probably a couple of weeks ago, and it's Dracula AD 72. It's not the most popular of the Dracula series of films, but I like it. And not least because there were some interesting cars in it. Are you familiar with that film, James?
I am, David, although I haven't seen it for some time. I probably saw it in 1973 or something. But yeah, I mean, it's very memorable because of the stag. And I remember the first time I saw it, I just went stag. But you've subsequently told me that there are many other wonderful spots in it, and that's what I'd like you to tell me about.
Well, the stag in the film moves
Mm.
without being towed. So I thought really that was quite incredible. That's a 10 out of 10 IMDb rating for that alone. Yeah, there's some interesting cars in it. There were three in particular. One of the first cars you see in it is a Marcos Coupe. Now, again, when was the last time you saw one of those?
No, I haven't seen one forever.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I used to see one at Bowness at the Hill Climb. There's one that regularly competes, but on the road, I can't remember the last time I saw one. It could be many, many years, and it probably is many, many years since I saw one. But there's one in it. It's 1971, and it looks as if it's got a boot rack on it as well.
Goodness me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is that's quite cool. It actually suits the boot rack. And then a car I have described as a better version of the greatest ever car, a Citroen Diane. And it appears in quite a few scenes because one of the characters owns it in the film. Not full, it doesn't go full flower power,
No.
but there's a little bit of a flower power design on it. And it's just a thoroughly cool car. And nothing falls off it, it doesn't fall to bits. I'm not insulting Citroen Dianes because I think they're really good little
Yeah.
cars. I mean, then again, they've got the same sort of size of engine as that dishwasher in Transylvania, James,
Oh,
haven't they?
really?
I think so. Maybe the Range Rover, maybe the new one looks like a dishwasher or a washing machine or whatever. Maybe they use the same engine now. But yeah, it's quite cool. And there's even a scene with it in, of all places, a car wash.
Goodness me.
The old fashioned style car wash. And then, of course, we have got the Triumph Stag,
Yeah.
which does move under its own power.
Mm.
It's a yellow one, and it's a pre-production car.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. There's lots of buses in it. You'll see a few buses, and I'm not an expert in buses, but at least one of them has got to be a route master. You'd think, wouldn't you?
You would have thought so.
Going back to because I used to go to my uncle's in London.
Yeah.
I was in route masters a lot, and there was something great about them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they might have been dirty and smelly, and that was just the insides. But there was something cool about them. They were just great. You can get your route master kicks and your London bus kicks in that film too. So very, very worthwhile watching. Brings me back to the whole thing of 1970s films. They're great.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing about these old TV programs and old films is that, most of the pleasure is actually looking at the street scenes.
But occasionally you'll see a rare car as well in it.
Mm.
There's a British film called The Comeback, a movie from the late 70s, and it's got a very rare car in it indeed. It's got a Lotus E-Class Sprint. Can you believe that?
No.
It was a production car, but it was only produced for a very short time. Probably not quite as rare as the TR7 Sprint, but nonetheless, still a rare car, and it features in a few scenes in that movie. So, again, if you're watching a 70s film, whether it's British film or continental film or American film, it doesn't matter. Even if the film's rubbish, persevere because you just don't know what you're going to see, and it could be a great car. It could be something you just are not going to see in the roads today, and you get to see it in its natural environment, being driven, which is wonderful.
That's right, and always going to be period correct because that's the one thing that a lot of filmmakers get wrong is when they enter their time machine. Is if you just research it a bit, you just find there are so many mistakes in films where they've just recreated 1970 and they just get so much wrong.
Yeah,
and I think for most of the listeners to this, I think it drives all of us mad, really, doesn't it? Because these things are important, if not vital.
it drives us mad. You say, well, it's a short journey in many cases,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Talking of films with bloopers in them, with Neil and I, another favourite film out of yours and mine is there's obviously a Jaguar Mark II and a very beaten up Jaguar Mark II, but there are a number of other cars in it, and most of them I think are within a year or two of being period right, which isn't too bad. I mean, considering it was made in the late 80s. But the bit that always makes me laugh is the motorway scene.
Yeah.
And I'm not slagging off the film company because it was a low budget film and CGI just didn't exist in those days in the way it does now. But if you watch the motorway scene, you'll see a car driving along a motorway supposed to be in 1969, and other traffic may well be from that era. But the signs, the motorway layout, are from late 1980s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of incongruous. But I suppose in a way it adds to the charm of the film.
Well, maybe. It's reminded me actually of going to see Quadrophenia,
Oh,
when it
yeah.
came out, yeah, and so that was 1979, so I remember being in the cinema, and they do sort of, West London street scenes, but you
Hmm.
can see Allegros, you can see, Mark 1 and 2 escorts in it, and, at the time, that quite distressed me, so, even though I was enjoying the film and I like the music of The Who, I just thought, "No, you can't do that."
I've got a Quadrophenia DVD somewhere, so I'll have to dig it out and watch it. Now that you've said that.
No, it is worth a look because, strangely enough, the mods actually, although they were very well known for having their scooters, Vespas and Lambrettas and all sorts, they actually had minivans. Minivans were extremely popular because they found them extremely cool, anyway, and they could sleep in the back. So when they went to Brighton, instead of sort of kipping under the what's that thing that goes out the pier? That's right. I couldn't think of the word for the pier there. Instead of kipping under the pier,
Yeah.
you could sleep in the back of your minivan, and also you weren't paying purchase tax either. So there was a lot of people bought them for that reason as well. So a very unsung hero of the mod movement is
Hmm.
the commercial minivan. So,
And notice, listeners, that James correctly identified it as purchase tax because that's what
mm,
it was then.
it was
It
absolutely,
was replaced by VAT in 1973,
yeah,
which effectively caused the end of component cars, or
yeah,
like the Lotus Elan component form and the Pipers, because the system of calculating tax changed between purchase tax and VAT, and the price advantage was lost. So there you go. There's a bit of useless information
mm,
as ever supplied by the podcast. But
yeah,
yeah, Quadrophenia is excellent. It kind of leads me into a little passion of mine. I watch old films quite a lot, and what I do is if I see a scene of somewhere that looks interesting, I'll try and find out first of all where it is, and then I'll try and see how it looks now. Is anything left of that? Could I go and visit it if I was in that area? And that's what I do. I go onto Google Maps, etc., Google Earth, whatever, Street View, and I'll search out places and do a comparison. It's a sort of Animaki thing to do, I suppose, James, isn't it?
oh, it's a very strange thing to do, David. I really can't understand that at all. It sounds completely weird to me. Uh, but no, it isn't. It isn't really. No, it is a perfectly normal thing to do. I think there is a website, isn't there, that does that for you.
Mm,
there are people who sort of do that for a living,
they are, yeah,
almost,
yeah.
and it is quite fascinating to see, yeah, how things look now and whether they survived in any way, shape, or form. Most of the time, you can't recognise anything at all. But
But sometimes you can, and sometimes
mm,
it's not changed at all.
yeah,
There was a guy over in North America, Hervé Attia, used to make videos of it. He'd visit locations and do, effectively then and now shots. And he was quite a clever guy. He was able to composite himself into some of the
oh
scenes.
really?
Yeah, using a program like After Effects or something. So he did it pretty well. You wouldn't
Mm,
really see the joins. You can look at locations, possibly even garages, James.
yeah,
There's a good one.
mm,
Because if you look at, for example, School for Scoundrels, we've talked about
yeah,
it from 1960, there's unusual cars in it. There's also a garage, is it on the A40 supposed to be?
yeah.
It's not there anymore, but, that's something I found out. But you might see something interesting, maybe an Art Deco garage or something. You can go and check it out, see if it's still there. It's better than watching telly, that's all I'm going to say.
Well, it is, but yes, I mean, School for Scoundrels is an outstanding show, not least for the presence of Peter Jones and Dennis Price as the two most brilliant car salesmen
Oh,
you will ever come across. So,
the Winston Welshman. Well, that film,
yeah,
the whole cast is wonderful.
yeah.
You've got Terry Thomas, you've got Alistair Sim, who's his usual self. He was just brilliant as well. Ian Carmichael's fine as the lead character. It's just his misfortune that he is surrounded by stars who are absolutely at the top of the game.
Well,
And
that's right, Terry Thomas. I mean, there you go.
oh, Terry Thomas, yeah. If you don't like Terry Thomas, I don't want to know you. There we go.
Well, there's a very good book that I read, and I still have, and it's called Bounder, and it's about his life, and it's worth a read. He came
Mm,
from very humble beginnings. He wasn't very well at the end of his life, which was a shame.
mm.
But really, he was just brilliant. Really, I don't think he made a bad film, apart from Spanish Fly, which I saw recently, and that was terrible. But apart from that, all his films are great.
Yeah, and he was always great in them. That was the thing. He was just a very, very naturally funny guy. And yeah, as you say, James, unfortunately, he didn't have a great life at the end, but he's given us a lot of great memories and a lot of
Yeah.
great moments. And he'll always be remembered for that. As long as people watch films and watch TV, Terry Thomas will always be there. And in that note, we shall take another quick break. You're listening to Bangers and Classics, the only motoring podcast to be recommended by Your Dishwasher magazine. So it is time for this week's Banger or Classic. And we are going to Longbridge this week, are we not, Mr. Rupert?
Oh, are we? Oh, right.
I think we are.
Yeah.
Perhaps not as exciting as the trip to Transylvania, but we're going to talk about the MGF and TF. Now, I suppose, obviously, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what was your favourite of the two, the F or the TF?
I quite like the original. Actually, I quite like the original flavour of MGF.
Right, because I'm more of
Are
a
you?
TF. I'm more of a TF guy. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I prefer the styling, which was a Peter Stevens restyle in the same way that he restyled the Lotus Esprit from the Giugiaro into the Esprit X180. And yeah, I think he made a really good job of it. But
Yeah.
I think I'm in a minority with this one. I think there's a lot of people. There's a lot of love for the F, maybe not so much the TF. But
I mean,
so
I would admit it does look like a bar of soap, really, doesn't it?
the first one.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
No.
What?
The bar of soap's the MX5. Really, come on. Let's have some sense here, Mr. Rupert, please. What you did have, of course, they're both mid-engined. And do you remember what they called the MGF in the motor trade at one point?
No idea, David.
Well, you would have known that. Of course you do. You're just kidding on. It was called the HGF by some wags for head gasket failure. Yeah, because obviously the K-Series engine installation in the F wasn't, and the TF as well, wasn't brilliant because it was a front engine designed for a front engine car with a front-mounted radiator, and certain aspects of the engine design, more the ancillaries than the engine itself, but should we say were suboptimal, whatever that means, and the head gasket wasn't great. These problems were largely solved a long, long time ago. So if you're buying an F or a TF, and frankly, I'm going to say I think you should if you get a chance, because they're nice little cars. Make sure the work's been done. That's it. I mean, apart from the styling, is there any particular reason you'd favour the F over the TF? I know the F's get the F's get hydrogas, the TF's get steel springs.
Yeah, I suppose that's a complication you wouldn't want really. But I just like the look of it. It just seems cuter than the later car. And
I think the later looks more purposeful. So
yeah,
the early one probably is cuter in that sense, but it's a sports car. I don't think it should look too cute, James. I don't know.
no.
But yeah, different strokes for different folks. Having established that we each favour different versions or different flavours of it, what do you reckon to it as a banger or a classic?
I think it's a classic, David, without any hesitation at all. I see an awful lot of them about now. Where people are obviously caring and looking after them and running them as they're not running them as bangers. They are running them as classics, even though you can still buy them quite cheaply. And as you say, you do have to tread carefully. But I think it became a classic fairly rapidly. It's affordable, so that is sort of part of its banger charm. But as the last proper MG soft top, it's got its place in history.
Yeah,
So,
I couldn't disagree with that. There used to be a place, and probably still is. I think it's just on the A1. There'd be a gaggle of MGFs and TFs sitting outside with for sale signs on them. Yeah, and they do look very good.
yeah.
And they sold very well back in the day. People perhaps forget that. I mean, they sold about 115,000, 120,000 of these things.
Yeah, no, I think they did. I think they did very well.
Basically, Austin Rover had been in the better state, or Rover Group had been in the better state. They might have sold a lot more.
Absolutely. And in the old days, that would have been a big hit in America as well, wouldn't it? Because actually, if you look at the sales figures for cars in the 60s, I mean, it was just phenomenal. The amount of Triumphs and MGs and Austin Healey's that were actually sold in America. It was, again, as we always come back to saying, a massive wasted opportunity of huge proportions. Because they never made cars like that, that's why ours went down very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to effectively World War II and the
Mm,
Cold War.
yeah,
American servicemen being stationed over here, and they'd see a little roadster or something. Oh, I quite fancy that. They might buy one to use here, and then when they go home, they ship it. And of course, they got popular over in America. And obviously, back in the day as well, in the years after World War II, there was an export drive because basically Britain was bankrupt. No change there, of course.
no.
And British motor industry was, for some years, the greatest exporter or the biggest exporter of cars in the world. Believe that
Mm,
or not. And a lot of them ended up stateside. But as you say, James, wasted opportunity. We failed to capitalise on it. And that's all you can say. But as far as the F and TF go, yeah, it's a classic. I think we can move safely on. We're not going to get beaten up by a car club this week. I might get beaten up by the MX5 Owners Club again, but bring it on. Yeah, well, you've got to be honest. Got to be honest. Besides, there is a shock coming. I can't tell you what it is just yet.
oh,
Well,
right.
actually, I can. There is a book coming out that I have written, and my cohort, Russell, who's done the cover and is doing the formatting, has put a certain car on the front of it. He very cleverly didn't let me see the cover. And just when I was chatting to him the other day, he let it slip that there might be a car on it that would cause me to go into a state of apoplexy. Can you guess what that car is?
Well, I did send him quite a large check in order to do that, David. So that's obviously why he's done it. But well done to him.
Yeah, he's not the first person to do that. A certain magazine editor, as he then was,
Yeah,
once got me to write the buyer's guide for the MX-5.
yeah, yeah.
I had to be completely objective, which it was good fun. There's a friend of mine who's got one called Ian. I'll just mention him, and Ian is going to dine out on this when he sees the cover of this book. I have given him such a slagging for years about his car. He's going to get his own back in a big way. And you know what? I don't mind one little bit. It's all part of the fun, mate, isn't it?
Well, it is absolutely.
Yes. Anyway, can we stay in times of yore, days of yore, and go back to TV. We've done film.
Yeah.
I mean, I think James, you'd have made a great 1970s cop.
Do you think so? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think you would have. I think
Yeah,
you could have cut the Jason King look, pretty well.
that's nice of you to say.
Yeah, I think so. But there are a couple of shows, one from that era and one set in that era, that are both seminal moments in television. One was The Professionals, of
Mm.
course, CI5, and the other was more recent. We had Life on Mars, which was set in 1973, and Ashes to Ashes, which was set in the early 1980s. Both of them had some interesting cars. If you were a fan of The Professionals, you could take your pick from a Dolomite Sprint, an RS 200 Custom, a Capri 3-litre S, a Granada gear. There's probably something else I've forgotten there, but we'll move on to Life on Mars now. And you had the Cortina Mark III GXL. And of course, Ashes to Ashes had the wonderful red Audi Quattro. What would you go for out of those, James? If you're a 1970s cop or a 1970s TV cop, what would you have as your wheels?
Well, I wouldn't have anything to do with life on Mars, David, because that's a rapier through my heart.
I forgot.
Because so yeah, I just keep it to the professionals really, and that era of cars. And I tell you what, Cowley's Granada
Mm,
was a remarkable car for the time. I used to, I may have mentioned this before. My Uncle Joe was a chauffeur. Last part of his career, and he used to bring home all lots of different cars. But one of the better cars that he brought towards the end of his time doing that job was Granadas, and they were just fantastic. They used to run Humber Super Snipes and stuff like that, but I think they just bought these and thought, wow, these are they are extremely good value. They're very quick, they're very comfortable. You've got every especially a gear. You're going to get everything fitted as standard. So either the Mark One or the Mark Two, which had quite a starring role in the Tom Bell sort of crime drama called Out. If anybody remembers that, Tom Bell was
mhm,
driving around in a Mark II Granada. And I tell you what, that is one of the coolest looking cars still. And it's it's a very squared off looking car. But
mm.
again, you got everything on it. You had a nice V6 engine, and to me, for a 1970s, I could get the person when I managed to catch them. They could go in the back. There's obviously a big boot to put them in as well.
Mm.
Yeah, and there's lots of room in the back, lots of velour. So personally, I would go for a Granada gear, Mark 1 or Mark 2.
All right.
But what about you, David?
Well, I'm just wondering, James. I mean, we're talking about the Granada Saloon and the Granada Coupe.
Well, there is a Granada Coupe,
Mm.
but I would probably stick to the saloon. Although again, you'd get bonus points if you saw a coupe. They were, you see them at car shows, but you certainly don't see them anywhere
No.
else at all.
As I recall it, the console was a slightly cheaper version of the Granada. Was
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
same car,
It
just
was the
slightly.
same car, but
Yeah, yeah.
if you say to car balls, "Oh well, the Granada in the Sweeney," they'll go, "Oh, I don't know, Granada. It was a console."
I'm going to go for. I'm not going to go for Dolomite Sprint. We've already had that discussion.
Yeah,
Capri. Well, yeah. I mean, they look great. Theory to Rest looks fantastic, but no, I'm going to go for an RS 2000 Custom, please,
yeah,
with the mesh headrests.
mm,
And obviously the drip snoot. And
yeah,
can I have mine in white? Oh, I want a sunroof too. I do want a
yeah,
sunroof. Yeah, very cool looking car, I thought, back in the day. And I think it still is. I may not catch the villains, but at least it'll look cool doing it.
yeah.
Sorry to bring up Life on Mars. I completely forgotten.
That's all right. David, I'll be over it in a couple of weeks' time. Don't worry.
Yeah, I was in a bit of a haze here.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Yeah, I know. It's shocking. And I think on that note, I'm going to
Yeah,
say thank you for listening. We're glad to be back from Transylvania. Who knows where we'll end up next, but we hope your company is on the journey.
absolutely. Yes, it's good to be back on board with you all, and I hope you all got the postcards. We did send everybody a postcard.